Erika pointed a gun at me. I couldn't open it properly. I broke down. At the end, it seemed like he had mercy and let me go, but he almost killed me.
$1 million mansions, latest model cars, imported clothes and bags, and all kinds of luxuries are the things that surround the drug lords. Dangerous people, but with power and money that can be very tempting for many. Not only for men who dream of being like the leaders of organized crime, but also for many women who want to taste a bit of this dream life where everything is within their reach. Women who flaunt their power and wealth on social media. Beautiful women who enjoy having cosmetic surgeries, wearing jewelry and designer clothes. Designer young girls who are called the girlfriends of drug trafficking. What few know is that those luxuries come hand in hand with a life in constant danger. The girls who are like trophies for the criminals must move carefully in the world of crime, as a misstep could be fatal. In this video, I'm going to talk about some women who played with danger and got involved with the wrong men. For just a short time of wealth, they sold their soul to the devil. 24-year-old Sabrina Duran, or La Ina as her close ones called her, was known as a Chilean narco influencer. She had an account on the social network TikTok where she managed to accumulate more than 355,000 subscribers who have given her nearly 9 million likes. There she appeared to be a young woman like any other. She uploaded videos reviewing beauty products that were sent to her and danced to the current reggaeton in front of the camera.
Today I made a second part for this time to show the smell of the little thing. Because they are very delicious. I have already seen it, but so that you can see it.
However, he belonged to a criminal clan with his family. The narco influencer had a history of vehicle accessory theft and micro-trafficking or retail drug dealing, which is when trafficking is done in small quantities for delivery, distribution, or marketing. About 100 detectives participated in the arrest of the young woman and her accomplices, finding almost $10,000 in cash, various types of illegal substances, and security cameras installed throughout the house at her residence. The police arrived but were unable to help her.
There we have images of when she escaped, even through the window, falling onto a roof. There was practically no obstacle for her to be able to carry out this escape.
INAH tried to escape through a window but was nonetheless captured and put behind bars in the San Miguel Women's Penitentiary Center. In confinement, the TikToker met her partner Antonella Marchant, who was part of the Marchant narco clan. So after serving a 3-year sentence, the narco influencer was finally released. However, her days were numbered. The woman had been out of jail for a month when, in broad daylight, around 9:30 in the morning, 2 men intercepted her at the intersection of Primera Transversal and Alberto Blesgana streets. Without giving her time to react, they shot her about 8 times, leaving her agonizing in the street. The criminals took her car, perhaps in an attempt to make investigators believe it had been a robbery. Then the stolen car was found while it was burning in the commune of Quilicura. Although the narco influencer was taken to a care center, there wasn't much more to do. The men not only shot her, but they finished her off when she was on the asphalt. It was never known who ordered her death, but it is probably, or almost certainly, due to a settling of scores by some rival gang. Erika Bandy met Nery Lopez in 2009 while they were both visiting a lawyer's buffet. At the time, the man was selling used cars and Bandy was a 26-year-old widow with 2 children because her first husband had been deprived of his freedom and his life had been taken away the previous year in a crime that was never solved. On one hand, Lopez came from a family of peasants while Bandy was from well-off landowners. After a quick courtship, they got married in the year 2010 and Bandy gave birth to twins a year later. But a quiet life in the suburbs, like any other average family, was not in the cards for this marriage. And by 2012, Lopez had become a large-scale trafficker. That same year, he had helped finance the presidential candidacy campaign of Juan Orlando Hernandez in Honduras. The then president would have accepted millions of dollars from traffickers during the campaign in exchange for protection from security forces.
Former President Juan Orlando Hernandez surrenders to the police surrounding him at the doors of his residence. Handcuffed and under the gaze of the crowd, he is transferred.
In November of 2014, a drug raid put Lopez and Bandy on alert. Authorities intercepted a fuel truck carrying 351 kilograms of white parrot from Venezuela inside its van, not far from the couple's ranch. The driver was the only one arrested, but undoubtedly the seizure set off alarms for all those involved, including the couple. Then, in an attempt to avoid arrest by the Drug Enforcement Administration at all costs, Lopez devised an elaborate plan to fake his own death. He organized a funeral with all his relatives and a priest held at gunpoint. A photo of him lying in a coffin circulated on social media to complete the deception. He obtained a death certificate illegally and also adopted a new identity, a new name that was Magdaleno Mesa. He also underwent several plastic surgeries, changing his nose, his hairline, jaw, and closing his dimples, but of course keeping his wife, Bandy, by his side at all times. However, the ruse didn't work for long because in August of 2016, authorities raided properties linked to Lopez and Bandy and compared the records belonging to both Lopez and Mesa. The conclusion was, as expected, that it was clearly the same person. And so everything began to go downhill as the sun set on July 6th of the year 2018. 2 days after Lopez turned 36, he and Bandy were driving an armored Toyota Hilux on a road leading to their ranch in Santa Barbara. At that moment, they came across a vehicle checkpoint, unaware that it was all part of a trap. The Honduran security officers had set up the checkpoint just for Lopez and Bandit. They managed to catch them along with 3 of their workers who were following them in a Volkswagen Amarok truck. Upon being detained, Lopez tried to bribe the soldiers, but they refused, and at that moment the couple realized they were in serious trouble. They registered the detainees and then transferred them along with their vehicles to a nearby military base. They found an ID card on Lopez with a fake name, Magdaleno Mesa, over $7,000 in cash, and 5 Rolex watches. Bandy had very expensive jewelry in her bag. Obviously, at that moment, they pretended to barely know each other, and for a moment, it seemed like the officers wouldn't find enough evidence to arrest them. But luckily, the drug enforcement agents cut a trap door under the back seat of the Volkswagen, revealing almost $200,000 in cash, grenades, and 11 accounting books. They discovered that a switch in the Toyota was connected to another in the Volkswagen, and when activated, it opened a dashboard compartment where they hid weapons. Thus, Bandy and Lopez were put behind bars, the latter as Magdaleno Mesa. Although Lopez wanted to cooperate with the Drug Enforcement Administration, he was trapped in a prison in Honduras because the U.S. authorities had not sent an extradition request before his arrest. And even though he had been indicted by the United States 2 years earlier, he now had to first serve his legal process in his country. On the other hand, and during the trial, Bandy clung to the typical stereotype of an innocent housewife who had no idea what her husband's profession was. However, for the Honduran authorities, she was the brains of the organization and Lopez was the arms. On the other hand, and in turn, people who knew the couple described Lopez as humble and calm, while Bandy was described as a woman of contrasts, a loving mother who liked fine things, but also volatile and bloodthirsty. The workers of the criminal organization called both bosses, but many suggested that Bandy was the one who had connections with drug traffickers. However, 8 days after the verdict that sent him to prison, Lopez was in a hallway talking to the prison director when a masked guard opened the side door. Out of it came members of the MS-13 gang, who immediately shot at Lopez and then barbarically mutilated part of his body.
I'm not asking for freedom in any way. I'm just asking for a transfer to a battalion. I don't leave the cell where I am for safety. I ask you to tell the judge to touch his heart.
But the attack on Lopez was going to be just the first of many others. These crimes terrified, as you can imagine, Mandy, who kept her silence and managed to get out of jail in 2022 thanks to a reform of the penal code. But the woman was not really free. Every month she had to appear before the court as part of her probation, and she was forbidden to leave the country.
Bandy wanted to leave
from Honduras for obvious reasons and was eagerly awaiting the end of her probation so she could travel to a distant country and take refuge there forever. But for that, she needed money, and since she had been released from jail, she had been collecting old debts to survive. Thus, June 22nd of the year 2023 was a dark day for this woman. She parked at a bakery in an armored Toyota Prado Sport utility vehicle, got out with her bodyguards, and entered the store without knowing that she was being closely followed. Her men stayed outside watching the entrance, which gave her some peace of mind. But quickly, another van arrived carrying heavily armed men in bulletproof vests who had one goal: to take the life of Erika Bandy.
These are the moments before the murder of Erika Yulisa Bandy in Tegucigalpa, Honduras. On the past June 22nd, she was in a bakery when 7 to 8 armed men entered, dressed as investigative police and hooded.
First, they secured the street, forcing the bodyguards to kneel. Then they entered the bakery, and seeing that she was completely defenseless, Bandy hid behind the counter and put her hands in front of her face as if to say, "Don't shoot." Then the men lifted her from behind the counter, and Bandy thought she would be arrested again. But they weren't real police, but a sophisticated group of disguised thugs. When she realized the harsh reality, Bandy grabbed an innocent customer and cowardly tried to use her as a human shield. One of the thugs gestured for her to move away from the woman, and when Bandy refused, the man shot over the customer's shoulder directly at his target, which made us realize that they were prepared people. When the drug trafficker fell wounded to the ground, the thug shot her directly in the head, followed by 2 more bullets that finished her off. The day after this event, her lawyers received notification that her parole had ended, but Bandy was no longer there to celebrate her absolute freedom.
The authorities call them the Brides of the Union. They are young women, typically under 30 years old. Most reside in the Morelos and La Guerrero colonies. Cosmetic surgeries are commonly done.
The Brides of the Union, women known for showing off their luxurious lives on their social media, displaying their expensive gifts, their trips, and their way of life thanks to their close relationship with the narco leaders of the Union of Tepito in Mexico. They are the Brides of the Union. However, many of them ended their lives tragically, wrapped up in the criminal life of their boyfriends who are members of the group.
They have detected that with the money provided to them by the union members from their illicit activities, they set up clothing stalls or dietary supplement stalls, local beauty salons to do nails.
Their boasted acquisitions are a result of these earnings. However, their stories often end in tragedy. One of them was
Karina Itzel Morales Baltazar, better known as Cari Malabuena. She was a famous girlfriend from Union Tepito who dated Alexis Martinez, known as El Alexis. However, he would be the cause of her disappearance when he found out that Itzel was also romantically involved with another member of the organization. It was Juan Ibal Arenas Reyes El Pulga, who was very good friends with Alexis, but everything ended in betrayal when Alexis found out he was courting his girlfriend. So in the middle of June of the year 2018, he sent him to his death. But his revenge didn't end with his friend. The woman did not escape from the love triangle marked by tragedy. And so on the 19th of December of the year 2018, Karina Itzel Morales Baltazar was deprived of her freedom in Tlanepantla, state of Mexico. And nothing was known of her whereabouts since then. For many, it looks like an obvious revenge, the result of pure suspicions. But for her family, it is nothing but an act of cowardice and misogyny on the part of her partner, who at the same time, well, you're playing with fire for two, cheating on a drug dealer and also dating a drug dealer. Similarly, the authorities have not helped to clarify her disappearance, and Karina Itzel's file was kept in the judicial records gathering dust.
forever.
And it will likely remain that way, sadly.
There's even a reward for anyone who can provide information to find her, but so far there's no news about her. The primary suspect in her disappearance, a man named Alexis, was briefly arrested but soon released.
Another horrible ending of one of the union's girlfriends was the case of the Venezuelan Kenny Finol, 26 years old, who worked as an escort or affectionate or prostitute. Kenny Mireya Finwell had traveled to the Aztec country to seek a better future for her and her family. There she was known as the most expensive doll in the showcase, a companion lady who had among her client portfolio very dangerous substance traffickers.
Being a companion lady, we were telling you yesterday, being an escort is of enormous risk. Women who dedicate themselves to this are exposed to constant danger, without any exception, even to death.
Although the danger alarms were on, her closest friends commented after her death that she liked the bad guys.
She became the girlfriend of Brian Mauricio Gonzalez, alias El Pozoles, a founder of the criminal group of the Union. Authorities link him to homicides, kidnappings, abductions, and extortion.
Her life on the edge would lead her to the worst of endings on February 26th of the year 2018, when the police found the lifeless body of Pinol in the Jardín de Santa Clara neighborhood in the Mexican municipality of Catepec, on a street near a school.
Her body was abandoned. The corridor in Catepec, Mexico showed signs of torture. The young woman allegedly attended an electronic music festival last weekend, aware of the state of Mexico's poor security situation.
The main suspect of this atrocity was Brian Mauricio Gonzalez, alias El Pozoles, a thug from the Union Tepito gang who fell in love with the young woman and demanded that she live the life she was leading in the Mexican country, but she refused, and he made one of the worst decisions. Not only did he brutally take her life, but he made her suffer until she stopped breathing. After this barbaric action, some videos that Finol had published to unmask her macabre relationship with this individual went viral, in which she warned of her end. The Venezuelan recorded 2 videos 4 months before she stopped breathing, in which she exposed her aggressor. In them, she recounted the abuse she had been subjected to, cuts with machetes, open wounds, bruises on her eyes, and a split mouth. Also a fracture in the left arm.
The last cut is very deep and will require stitches. The doctor went to get the things to stitch me up, and what they gave me now was a painkiller.
Finol ended his relationship with Pozoles in September of 2017, but he kept looking for her tirelessly. In October, the man began dating Karen Island, a woman he met on zonadivas.com. Finol believed he had freed himself from his ex-partner through this act. However, this relationship ended abruptly on December 27, 2017, when Karen was found dead with a bullet wound to her head. That same day, the man called Finol and told him that he had taken his partner's life, and this set off his danger alarm, and he knew he would go for her, and he was not very wrong. But don't think this was the last girlfriend of the Union. There was also Karen Nalivi, 30 years old. The woman known as La Quimby had a 12-year-old son and a place where she did nails, although she was also known for being a dancer at a nightclub in the same area and having a relationship with a member of the Tepito Union, identified as Gordon or Jordan. On March 13, 2020, around 1 p.m., Nalibi Mustafa, alias La Quimby, and Jesus Barragan, alias Leonidas, departed the residence. There, on the street, 4 individuals approached on 2 motorcycles to shoot them more than 30 times. The detonations caused both pedestrians and 2 police officers who were patrolling the neighborhood to flee, while the perpetrators escaped further down the street in a truck, leaving the motorcycles behind. A few minutes later, when everything calmed down, police and paramedics arrived at the scene, where they found shell casings scattered on the silk, the couple bathed in a Red Sea, and a woman asking for help for her baby, who had been hit by a stray bullet. All were hospitalized, but miraculously only the 1.5-year-old survived. While the 30-year-old woman and her companion lost their lives before being attended to as a result of 25 gunshots.
The video of the funeral circulated on social networks where a large number of people are seen who organized a party to say goodbye to the young woman regardless of the social distancing measures. Surrounded by varied music, vodka, champagne bottles, and metallic balloons, loved ones grieved Valeria's passing.
Another drug trafficking bride was Valeria Diaz, 28 years old. Val, girlfriend of Alexis Martinez, also known as the Alexis, sold micheladas. In March of 2019, Valeria was driving a gray V-Roll car in the company of her friends, among them Brigitte, her partner's sister. The events occurred minutes before midnight. At that time, the women were at the Panaderos and Alfareria intersection when two men on a yellow motorcycle blocked their way. One of them pulled out a gun and aimed directly at Vale. There were at least 5 shots. Then they escaped towards AJ Central. The union's girlfriend died after a few minutes of agony inside her car and surrounded by the screams of horror from her friends who could do nothing to save her.
She's in her car with the music blaring, chatting with some friends. A motorcycle pulls up and guns her down. We're watching this video that was captured just a few minutes after she was attacked. They arrived to try to help her there where she lived.
And these are just some of the cases of the union's bride who had the worst of endings. There are many more, seemingly endless. All the young girls who get involved with men linked to the drug trade have the lives they always dreamed of, but they forget a small detail. The luxuries come with a toll of blood and death. In recent years, femicides in Mexico have gained great notoriety due to the disproportionate increase in these cases, in which more than half have been involved in organized crime, according to official figures, as well as women's defense organizations. One of the reasons why organized crime has ended the tranquility of women is that sometimes their bodies are used as revenge or means to send messages to rival gangs. Another reason why femicides are very common in the world of drug trafficking is that they are seen as property of men. That's why if they refuse to continue with them, they decide to take their life through suffering and even intimate abuse.
Many of them are of humble origin. Beauty is perhaps the only virtue that members of criminal groups like drug traffickers, kidnappers, or hitmen find.
Women assume the role of subordinate subject in this armed conflict. In this also system of organized crime, women are dehumanized and degraded to objects of decoration, entertainment, or intimate companions of some of the members of the criminal group. The power
or money, perhaps ignorance, led them to get involved with these individuals. That beauty in the end was the cause of
their misfortune. Faced with the inaction of the state, many affected, especially women, organize themselves into search collectives or other forms of support to look for the missing. In the process, general issues of gender equality as well as the defense of human rights also become the focus of the organizations. These often operate at a local level and serve as a refuge for women victims of violence and their survivors. State financial support is also insufficient and has decreased recently. In Mexico, as you can already imagine, a change of direction is needed towards a policy that recognizes and legally punishes structural violence against women.
Look closely, son of your bitch mother. I don't give a goose about Mencho. Just letting you know, it's all about marijuana here. I don't sleep like the pirate or the little guy from Culiacan. I am immortal, I am untouchable, and I made a pact with the devil, bastard.
Being trendy, seeking likes, reaching thousands, millions of followers has become the race for many on social media. The goal of fame, money, and a life full of luxuries is a tempting goal for any influencer. But what happens if in achieving that, you offend the wrong people? What happens if by making a video and saying something just to get millions of views, you put your very life at risk? There were influencers who crossed a very dangerous line, naming or messing with people dedicated to crime and to eliminating from this planet people they find as threats or who they simply dislike. Today, I'm going to tell you about the most resonated cases of TikTokers and influencers who angered the wrong people. Rodolfo Marquez, known as El Fofo, drew attention on social media by showing an extravagant life full of luxuries and parties where he spent with his friends more than 1 million Mexican pesos per night on drinks and beverages. Born into a multi-millionaire family, his grandfather amassed a great fortune by manufacturing footwear for the opulent elites of Mexico, a heritage that grew with his father, owner of oil and gas stations. In total, this gave Fofo the extraordinary luxuries to show off on his social media. He often flaunted his eccentric life through the cell phone screen, especially his cars, among which he has a Lamborghini, a Camaro, a Porsche, among many million-peso cars. He also boasted about his pets, one of which he gave to his girlfriend was a lion cub and a jaguar that he even bathed with champagne. Obviously, it was an act that earned him accusations of animal abuse. However, his viral and popular videos of parties, luxuries, and controversies reached a new level when in July of 2022, he decided to close the busy Matute Remos Bridge in Guadalajara.
What we're going to do is we're going to close it. We're going to park the ships like this, and we're going to literally close it. The cars, people will probably get upset and start honking, but it's a show of power. Look, look, look. Let me start dancing here on the bridge. Look, peripheral closure for me alone, once again showing what money and power can do here in Mexico. Nobody touches me. People are really annoying. They're filming me. Sir, don't film me. I'm a public figure.
Just because he wanted to. Just to have the bridge for him and his friends. Just to show off his luxury cars. Just to prove that he had the money and power to do it. His act had consequences. We're not discussing legal ones, since they don't exist here. And the state's ear-pulling. That was nothing. An insignificant fine of 35,000 pesos, a minimal amount, nothing for him. But there is a power much greater than the local authorities, and that all the money from the wealthy Marquez family. And this is the power of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, the foremost feared letters in the world. A message that shook the influencer is circulating through social media. This was in reference to the cutting of the bridge. It's an act that we will not tolerate, let alone allow any jerk like this to come and do these kinds of things. We are the ones who rule in Jalisco and all of Mexico. And you, Fofo, we will only tell you to be careful because we will not let you come to Guadalajara thinking you can do whatever you want. Mr. Mencho is in charge here in Jalisco. Got it? If we see you in Guadalajara again, we're going to pick you up, and then not all the money in the world will help you. And that's how the influencer immediately apologized, but the scare changed his life. He didn't stop uploading videos. The difference was that his new content was showing off his mansion and the 30 people he hired as private security. 100 guards accompanied his family everywhere. However, in February of 2024, the TikToker became a trend again and caused a great stir with a controversy. In the parking lot of a shopping plaza in La Brisa neighborhood, a 52-year-old woman accidentally brushes her car against the side mirror of Fofo's car, which reacted in a despicable, terrible way and gave the woman a tremendous beating, even kicking the lady while she was on the ground. The repudiation was obviously immediate, and it's been 2 months with the influencer in prison waiting for a trial to determine whether he will spend years serving a sentence or will be released by paying a fine. During the hearing, the affluent youth cried, stating he didn't want to pass away in prison. And he had reasons because on a pedestrian bridge in Tijuana, the upper part of a body appeared along with a blanket with a clear message. You touch a woman again, and this is going to happen to you and your whole family in Tijuana, Mexico City, Guadalajara, wherever you are. Damn hallucinating kid, Fofo Marquez. Sincerely, those from the house. From a blow to fame, for what many may consider a shame, for this boy, it was a path to a life full of luxuries and excesses that he always dreamed of. And it is that, unlike Fofo, the pirate of Culiacan grew up with needs. He was born as Jose Luis Laguna Rosales, and what he knew best in his first months of life was abandonment. His father fled before he was born, and his mother left him when he was very little in the care of his grandmother, Maria Rosales Torres. He helped his grandmother with the household economy, and as a child, he went out on the street to dedicate himself to the street sale of tamales, pozole, and other foods. However, like many young people he dreamed of, The Narco, with its luxuries, money, parties, and women already being a teenager, is that he started working as a packer in a supermarket where he met the bad company that this is being illegal. Substances and alcohol became a custom until the grandmother admitted him to a rehabilitation center, but the young man escaped towards Culiacan to work as a windshield cleaner, and that's where his life changed. With these new friendships linked to the mafia, to the narco, although he did not become part of any criminal organization, he did start to party until that video went viral. From there, thousands and thousands of people began to follow him on his social networks, which gave him access to the life he desired. It was common to see him with posts with expensive watches, jewelry, cars, gold-plated guns, military-style narco clothing, mansions, parties, women, and above all with alcohol. The fame of the drunk influencer followed him, but he didn't care and began to call himself the Pirate of Culiacan. He had 790,000 followers on Facebook, 37,000 on Twitter, and 323,000 on Instagram, and he thought he was on top of the world, even though his content was trash videos where people laughed at him, like one where he tried to ride a horse, another where he was scared by a tiger. Trash content. However, the thousands of followers and the partying life got to his head, and not being in his right mind, he made the wrong threat.
Dad, I'll get you whatever the hell you want. So, Mencho is waiting for me like hell.
Mencho is the leader of one of the most powerful groups and violent in the world, the infamous 4 letters group. His name should not be said in vain, and he has proven it on more than one occasion. He could not allow himself to be disrespected so lightly on social media. The fleeting fame then completely vanished from this boy. His desire to be a drug dealer and live by the gun came on December 18th of the year 2017, but he found himself on the other side of the trigger. That night, he went out for some drinks with friends at the Mentados Canteros bar in Jalisco when some men came in and gunned him down. 15 impacts extinguished his life forever and instantly. His grandmother and family were unaware of any potential income he might have earned as an influencer. His body rested for 3 days and 3 nights in a morgue without anyone claiming it, and his grave to this day has an abandoned look. The thousands of followers, the fame, and the luxuries did not accompany him after his death, and that's just how it remained. Pamela Montenegro del Real was a YouTuber known as Nana Pelucas. Initially, she focused on creating children's humor. Her extravagant afro wig and her high-pitched, shrill voice helped her to target the children's audience. But it wasn't until she drastically changed the direction of her content that she gained repercussion. Keeping her wig and appearance, everything changed in the municipal elections of 2015 when she began to make criticisms and satires of politicians, many of whom were invited and interviewed on her YouTube channel named The Armchair TV.
After this was the worst administration we've ever had, after they spent their time making this guy who knows where, because every time I went to the offices I couldn't find New. New couldn't find me and is asking for a bonus.
My kids, what do you think?
I want to be a councilwoman. My kids are doing really well, despite doing nothing. What are your thoughts?
Because of the content of her channel, she became an influential voice in the Acapulco Guerrero community. This attracted the annoyance of certain power circles. In her humor filled with criticism, she pointed out the mayor of the municipality, Evodio Velázquez Aguirre, for corruption with Zonatur, which is a government body that promotes tourism areas and is about to interact with the criminal groups in the area. In addition to this, many suspected that Nana Pelucas was behind a blog and Twitter that exposed the criminal activity in Acapulco and the existence of the independent cartel of Acapulco, acquired immune deficiency syndrome commanded by Jose Daniel Cervantes, El Barbas. The threats to the influencer didn't take long to arrive, and since 2016 she felt the fear of being a public figure. Humor then gave way to terror. Did he upset someone important? Why was the life of the YouTuber taken away? Well, perhaps these questions will never be known and will continue to hang in the air as they have until this moment. What would you be willing to do to gain followers? Illuminati6 was a Twitter, Reddit, and TikTok user who accepted challenges in exchange for gaining more and more followers. One of his requests went too far, and the young man didn't think. He simply acted without considering the consequences of insulting one of the most dangerous men in the world.
Look closely, son of your damn bitch mother. I don't give a damn about Mencho. I'm just telling you, pure 420. I don't sleep like the pirate or the little Chanito from Colaca. I am immortal. I am untouchable. And I made a pact with the devil, bastard. So if you don't know about me, about my existence, I came to you. To send fire, Menchos? I'm not afraid to say this, bastard, whether on camera or here. I don't give a damn about Mencho's mother. I tell him more, pure 420.
And it's that the young man disappeared from social networks, and it was speculated that the value quota he had to launch tremenda affront to Mencho of the 4 letters is because he lived outside of Mexico, more specifically in Richmond in California. An attack on American soil for a simple insult could be very dangerous and cross the crucial line between the cartel and the law enforcement forces of the United States. However, shortly after, Illuminati appeared from another account and with a tone very different from that threatening young man.
I made this video for Mr. Mencho. I apologize, what I said was not right. I was not aware of what I was saying, I was wrong. That day I woke up very stupid. I did not consider the consequences. I let myself be carried away by the followers. And I apologize. I care about you and your family. And Mencho, don't kill me, bastard. I have a family just like you, and I ask for my apologies. Here we all make mistakes. And well, I know everything is being seen, so I apologize, because the truth is I didn't know what I was doing. We all make mistakes, and I have psychological problems. So remember, sir, that you are cared for. Greetings.
On the other side of the world, they also speak with social networks and violence. Mohit Moore was a gym trainer who started uploading content on TikTok about personal care, workouts, and life advice with beautiful and uplifting phrases. This made him a celebrity in his hometown Nagar Fardeli in India, the most populated country in the world. This fame led him to improve the quality of his videos, more emotional and moving, with life lessons and examples of citizenship. He managed to have 500,000 followers on TikTok and millions of hearts on the applications. And it is that crime exists in all countries, and offending these leaders is something terrible both in America and in Asia. Mohit Moore then got into a dispute over some properties and received 30 rupees, that is about $35,000, from a city crime boss named Mangu, who was killed by a rival gang led by Zandev. This criminal leader demanded Mohit to pay those rupees, to which the coach, fitness, and influencer refused. In his logic, he owed that money to Mangu, and with his death, he didn't have to pay anyone. Zandev then sent a 17-year-old teenager to collect the debt, and on that occasion, Mohit beat up the young man. The furious criminal leader told the humiliated teen to kill the influencer. And that's how on the 21st of May 2019, he visited, referring to Mohit, a friend at his shop, a photocopier located in the city center. And while talking with his friend, he saw the teenager who humiliated him enter with 2 more men. It was the last thing he could see. And they fired 13 times, resulting in 7 fatal bullets. The influencer bled out on the store's couch and lost his life in seconds. The Indian authorities acted quickly and caught 2 of the 3 perpetrators. But the criminal leader fled the country, but not for long. Today, he is behind bars for ordering the crime of this influencer. Dancing in front of the camera with urban music, top brand clothes, jewelry, an influencer who reached 500,000 followers on TikTok. And unlike the others, she was the danger. Sabrina Duran Montero was known as the Narco Queen of TikTok, or simply the girl who led a powerful drug trafficking cartel in the Penaflor sector in Santiago de Chile, along with her brothers. Coming from a criminal family, unlike other girls, she didn't grow up admiring Barbies or any Chilean television star. Her idol was Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, so on several occasions, she used names related to the Sinaloa cartel boss for her social networks, such as Joaquina or Katrina Guzman. So, addicted to the cell phone camera, she gained thousands of followers and millions of likes on TikTok, boasting about her purchasing power, criminal life, showing off jewelry, designer handbags, manicures, cosmetic surgeries in the most exclusive private clinics in the Chilean capital, significant footwear, and eye-catching items. On the other hand, the local police were already on her trail. She was pointed out as the leader of a criminal gang from Peñaflor, so they managed to arrest her by following her social networks. On the day of the police operation, the influencer attempted a cinematic escape through a window that resulted in a realistic ending when she ended up behind bars. In jail, her fame as an influencer did not stop, and on the contrary, it grew, and it was common for her to post content showing her branded clothes and the comforts with which she lived in prison. The question here is, how was she allowed to have a cell phone in a place where it's supposed to be something forbidden? One more reason to show her power as the narco queen of TikTok. Similarly, while serving her sentence, she also fell in love with her cellmate, Antonella Machan, another drug trafficker from the powerful and feared Machan clan. However, beyond love, social media life gave her an opportunity to change the course of her criminal career. The millions of views and likes brought her closer to small businesses to advertise their products. They paid her with money or with the products themselves. However, her other life awaited her outside. In her short 24 years, she made enemies, and they soon came for her. On October 23rd of the year 2023, she was shot and killed in the street. Her last video is of her crawling on the asphalt before the coup de grace from her perpetrator.
She had some protection because there were people who wanted to kill her, but I believe it was simply because they were envious of her. Because the young girl was like, I don't know, she had personality, she made her TikTok ads, she danced, she was pretty.
Investigators are still debating the motives that put her in the crosshairs of the gun that took her life. One theory points to a settling of scores due to an INAH order that biased the existence of a young man. Although those most familiar with the streets of Peñaflor assure that the mind behind the attack against Sandra Duran Montero was the rival criminal gang La Banda de Yoyilili, also led by women and who had a years-long conflict with INAH and her brothers over control of the commune and the narcotics monopoly. From pizza delivery man to millionaire, Fernando Perez Algaba boasted of having made his immense fortune from nothing through effort, brain, and talent. And he showed off the good life on his social networks, more specifically on Instagram, where he had almost 1 million followers. When the influencer burst onto the networks, he told his story of overcoming on several media outlets. He was a pizza and various food delivery man with which he bought a motorcycle, improved it, and sold it for a very good amount of money. Then he found his great ability for buying and reselling cars and motorcycles, amassing a small fortune in a few years. However, he lost everything in the stock market. But without giving up, he recovered and became a successful trader who took advantage of the cryptocurrency bubble. In this new phase, Lechuga, as he was nicknamed, opened an office with dozens of traders under his command in the exclusive Puerto Madero in Argentina. He poured this experience into his social networks, where he gave advice for traders. As his influence increased, he dedicated himself to being a speaker and attracted many investors to cryptocurrencies. However, his great passion was still cars, especially high-end ones. It is in this field where he mingled with powerful people. Perez's business served as a front for money laundering. You know where we're going with this. He opened a company dedicated to the rental of high-end mid-range cars, jet skis, and yachts in the tourist area of Florida, in Miami, in the United States. He also maintained 2 trader offices in Puerto Madero, Argentina, and another in Barcelona, Spain. On Instagram, on the other hand, he posted about his luxury cars, splendid life, travels around the world, women, jewels, and every eccentricity you can imagine. However, behind the facade of pure shine hid a person with financial problems, with the wrong people too. At last, it was July 2023. Fernando, 41, lived between Spain and the US because he feared for his life in Argentina. A series of businesses went wrong for him and he owed money to very dangerous people. In the hope of recovering and becoming solvent again, he returned to Argentina and would never leave the country again.
On Sunday, a group of kids playing soccer at this place we are showing now found a small suitcase where inside were the 2 legs and 2 arms of the businessman. The tactical divers, the forensic police, the volunteer firefighters began to work, and on Monday they found the torso, which was in perfectly sealed garbage bags, and on Tuesday they found the skull, the businessman's head, inside of
a backpack.
That's why this crime is in full development, and here we have a key testimony.
The woman was in this butcher's shop when 2 men arrived on a motorcycle and shot her several times in the head. She was transferred to Belen's intermediate unit. Griselda Blanco was known as the queen of the cocaine who opened the route from Medellin to the United States, and as a result of this, she paved the way for the entire Medellin cartel in the 70s.
An inn far from the glamour that such a powerful woman knew how to handle. But in reality, what end of life can be called glamorous? And it's that not all women dream of being princesses. There are those who dream of being queens of death. From Griselda Blanco to La Catrina, there were women who did not hesitate and set out to conquer the criminal world of drug trafficking with overwhelming success based on cunning and blood. But being at the top comes with a very high cost that is paid with fatal consequences. These women knew how to conquer a world dominated by men, and they conquered it by being equal, or even more lethal than them. The ferocity of these women made them feared but also hated, with enemies everywhere, both public security forces and rival cartels that, in the end, eliminated them in their own way. Brazil is not exempt from the scourge that all Latin American countries suffer. The growth of criminal gangs dedicated to drug trafficking. The land of carnival and joy has long been invaded by the sadness that criminals bring. A heavy atmosphere of fear and death. In a country where every poor child dreamed of becoming a footballer to have a better future. Drug trafficking became a much faster way. Hello Kitty was known as the Lady of Drug Trafficking and kept Rio de Janeiro in suspense in her short criminal career. The city of Rio is experiencing a proliferation of criminal gangs and powerful drug lords, but the young Hello Kitty was the most fearsome and daring of all. She was born on December 25th of the year 99 on the hill of Concepcion Island in Niterói. This is in Rio de Janeiro. Long before she was the terrifying Hello Kitty, she was Ryan Nazareth Cardoso da Silveira and grew up in the evangelical communities of the region. Such was her devotion that she actually sang gospel in the evangelical parishes of the area. Obviously, no one imagined that she would exchange musical notes to God for notes or bullets to death. At 19, she met love and changed her destiny. She left the microphone with which she sang and exchanged it for a gun. Like modern Bonnie and Clyde, Kitty and her boyfriend rode on his black motorcycle. They robbed people and businesses in the area, The young woman's boyfriend lost his life in a shootout with the police in Minas Gerais in the year 2018. But despite this painful loss, the girl did not reflect on the lifestyle she adopted and went much deeper down that path. She moved to the Duksabo favela, and through robberies, kidnappings, and extortions, she became a man to be feared. Her fame then grew with each criminal blow and attracted the attention not only of the authorities, but of more important criminals. She was thus recruited and sponsored by Alessandro Luis Vieira Mora, known as 20 Anos. He was the drug lord of the Salgueiro and San Gonzalo area in Rio de Janeiro and leader of the famous Comando Vermelho, one of the most famous criminal groups in all of Brazil. It was created in a Rio de Janeiro prison by common criminals and left-wing military in the 70s, while the country was suffering a bloody military dictatorship. Then, by the late 70s, the band hit the streets of Rio, where free members engaged in minor crimes and bank robberies. To provide money to those who were imprisoned to maintain a good quality of life and finance escape attempts. However, in the 80s, everything changed when the Vermelho Command ventured into the world of drug trafficking and its alliances with Colombian cartels. It made them fierce and efficient also to control part of the business. As a member then, returning to this girl from the powerful gang, it was that she earned the name of Hello Kitty, which made her immortal for the legends of the corridors of Rio's favelas. She loved guns and motorcycles, and she uploaded these tastes and boasted about her criminal lifestyle on social media, posing with high caliber and war weapons. But not only followers made her famous, but her ferocity, her violence. Several murders and hits on rival gangs carried her mark, which made her the right hand of 20 years, a crime mentor. So Loquite was only 22 years old and already a legend in Lampa, to the point that a band of the new Brazilian funk dedicated a song to her and the combo she led with 20 years, the Nova Grecia troupe. Similarly, the police had her in their sights. Reward posters for any information leading to her capture flooded the streets of the favelas, San Gonzalo and all of Rio. She was afraid of being caught, so on her social media, she was always seen with a change of look to mislead the investigators. However, on July 15th of the year 2021, an anonymous complaint led the police brigade to a house where supposedly a gang was holding a family hostage. At the place, they found Hello Kitty, 20 years, and a third accomplice named Mikel Wanda, Miranda Marins, alias Playboy, and son of an important evangelical pastor from San Gonzalo.
And that's how Hello Kitty presented herself. On the motorcycles with the weaponry that she used permanently. She was the youngest and most powerful drug trafficker in Rio de Janeiro. She had escaped on more than one occasion from various police operations. In this last one, Carolina confronted the police and was shot down.
Hello Kitty faced the police forces and fell alongside her mentor, 20 years. Although there are questions that revolve around that last day of the drug trafficker, and it is that the reward offered for information was an insignificant number for the danger that it entails to dare to deliver such a dangerous criminal. So the question is, was the anonymous call made by some rival crime gang? The answer may never be known, but both the police and her crime enemies celebrated the fall of the drug trafficking lady. Get ready, make yourself beautiful, take a picture, and go out to take a life. That's what the hit woman TikToker Mixi Padilla, also known as Latilina, used to do. She had thousands of followers on the famous social network where she proudly posted videos showing her weapons of war and the initials of her organization, Gulf Cartel, or Cartel del Golfo. The powerful cartel is the oldest Mexican criminal organization. Its foundation dates back to the 30s in the Tamaulipas area, with a privileged border with Texas for smuggling. It was the creator of the Zetas, which led to a bloody internal war that put the area and the very existence of the Gulf Cartel in jeopardy, and resulted in the fragmentation of this powerful organization into several factions such as the Scorpions, the Meters, the Cyclones, the Panthers, the Reds, and all against all and all against one. The alliances changed and were renewed with more violence, and precisely in the Gulf Cartel, the Meters, is where Mixie began her criminal path. Many point to this faction as the precursor of having women as hitmen in their ranks because they have an additional weapon, the seduction and deception of adversaries. One of the armed branches of the Meters was named Los Tilines in honor of their charismatic and powerful leader, Ivan El Tilin Segura. It was his idea to add women, and in his hitman cells he had several, and they were quite effective in taking down both rival drug traffickers and members of the police and also the Mexican army. And in turn, Mixie Padilla was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding, not only for her talent when it comes to taking a life, but also because of the violence she also exerted. She was called La Tilina because she was then married to El Tilin himself. Many stand out for their ferocity and cold pulse when making decisions, and Mixie Padilla was one of them. This woman was well known for uploading videos singing narco corridos or flaunting her lifestyle in the hitman business with her weapons and bulletproof vests, along with her beauty. And she was a real deadly cocktail for those who crossed paths with her in real life, because that only meant losing their lives. Then, on the 29th of March 2022, Mixie uploaded a video to TikTok as was her custom, with a Narco Corrido song playing, with her vest, her loaded machine gun ready to go out with her combo, and that would be her last video. That same day, while traveling in a white Toyota van with Tilin and 3 more members of the Tilinis, they crossed paths with a convoy of 3 vehicles from the Mexican army, who, upon seeing them armed and recognizing them, proceeded to open fire. That moan at the end is from Mixie Padilla, the TikTok thug or the hit woman, expressing her last pain as her life slipped away in that van wearing the vest with the letters that gave her so much pride.
Hey, they took down almost all of us, all the known ones. Among them is Kane, there's Eder, there's Commander Sergio Reynel, everyone.
At the site of the ambush, hundreds of spent cartridges were left and 2 patrol cars were set on fire, on whose windshields narco messages signed by the Jalisco New Generation Cartel were placed.
La Catrina's name gained significant relevance in the narco world through a bloodbath. We're not referring to the figure from Mexican folklore associated with the Day of the Dead. Maria Guadalupe Lopez Esquivel was the woman known as La Catrina, who led the massacre that ended the lives of 13 state police officers on October 14th of the year 2019 in Aguililla, Michoacan. Long before she was the feared hit woman of the 4-letter cartel, she was the sweet daughter of a rancher and a housewife, and grew up in Tecaltepec, where they remember her as a good student with very high grades. However, neither school nor an honest life were to this teenager's liking, who preferred partying and the bad life. So it was in the year 2017 when she met a criminal she fell in love with and followed into the life of the mafia narco. She went with the boy to Aguililla, where she joined the forces of the Jalisco New Generation Cartel under the command of Miguel Fernandez's cell, the fearsome M2, a trusted man of Don Nemesio Seguera Cervantes, alias El Mencho. She quickly rose through the ranks of the 4 letters, considered a fierce and cold hit woman when it came to taking out her rivals. Although she also stood out for her beauty, she posed with her gold-plated machine guns and her favorite weapon, a .22 caliber intensive care unit, in photos as sensual as they were dangerous that she uploaded to her social networks. She was also a devotee of Our Lady of the Holy Death, which she had tattooed on one of her thighs, and due to her religious devotion, that's why she was nicknamed La Catrina, which she carried with pride and gratitude. And so it was that on the day of the massacre of the 13 policemen, where there were also 9 wounded, it was she who led the attack on the uniformed officers, and she could be heard over the radios receiving orders from M2 to leave threatening narcomantas at the scene of the crime. Her influence and power were crucial for this attack, as she had what she called the Hawk Patrols, a network of informants who through radio and messages told her the real-time location of the police convoy at the time of being attacked. And so it was that this operation that she led put her in the eye of the storm and as one of the main targets of the state of Mexico. The bloodbath she unleashed had to be paid for, and it was when the police, through anonymous information, found the safe house where La Catrina was hiding. It was there that in January of the year 2020, she faced the Mexican army without luck, being shot down. The officers' cameras were able to record her for the last time, on her knees and stained with this red liquid that overflowed from her throat and other body wounds. A bystander attempted to soothe her while awaiting a helicopter to transport her to a hospital to save her life. However, in that place, she was finally reached by what she called Saint, death after all. Since the eruption of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel in 2014, Guanajuato has become the bloodiest Mexican state due to the war unleashed with the four-letter cartel. Led by Jose Antonio Yepes Ortiz, alias El Marro, they initially dedicated themselves to stealing quantities of fuel from Pemex pipelines. Thus, with the growth of their power, they began to open up to other businesses, especially to the white gold business, which gave them the ability to become real military forces and expand to neighboring states such as Querétaro and Michoacán, which also resulted in a brutal confrontation against the Jalisco New Generation cartel of Mencho. El Marro, on the other hand, kept his circle of trust within the family, delegating operations and decisions to his brothers, father, and his sister, Karen Lisbeth Yepes Ortiz. Karen managed to impose great respect among the subordinates of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel. They saw her as a fearsome, calculating woman with great cunning when making decisions, which earned her the nickname of the Lady. Thus, under her brother's orbit, she fell in love with one of the most reliable lieutenants in the organization, who was known as El Calamaro. In the midst of the war against Cuatro Letras, that is the Jalisco New Generation cartel, the Lady and El Calamaro decided to celebrate their wedding on January 11th, 2020. The honorable appointment was at the Church of the Virgin of San Juan de los Lagos in the community of Pelavacas in Celaya, in Guanajuato. Karen, dressed in white, was at the altar with her future husband among her friends and family when a group of armored trucks from the Jalisco New Generation cartel showed up at the place and opened fire left and right. The target was El Marro.
"We were coming for you, filthy Marro, but you ran away like old women. We knew you were at the wedding, son of your
bitch.
Mother. Meanwhile, we're leaving your sister and your place having the squid. And that's how all the dogs that keep supporting that filthy man will end up."
Son of a dog. In August of that year, Marro was captured by the authorities. His cartel was in a position that was too fragile and far from the power it once had. Control passed to his brother Rodolfo Rudy, who made alliances with the Scorpions of the Gulf Cartel and Colombian mercenaries to confront the Mencho cartel. When Rudy was arrested by officers in November of 2022, many assumed the end of Santa Rosa de Lima. However, a new shadowy leader took over with a hard and heavy hand. In Tarimoro, within a month, 2 policemen were silenced, and a former commander, his sister-in-law, his father, and his 7-month-old niece were massacred at home. Narco blockades and vehicle burnings occurred in 5 municipalities. And on December 17th of CENEPASTO 2022, the Salvatierra massacre occurred where 12 young people were wiped off the face of the earth by an armed group from the CSRL. But who was the dark hand in the shadows that gave all these orders and revived the power of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel? Well, let me tell you. Well, a group of cyber activists in 2023 hacked into the databases of the Mexican army in what was called Guacamaya leaks. And among secret reports, it was revealed that the authorities were on the trail of Karen Yepes Ortiz, allegedly in charge of the Santa Rosa de Lima cartel. According to the investigation, the lady did not fall on her wedding day, and with cunning and patience, she built enough power to confront Cuatro Letras by forging a new alliance with the Salazar's new people. But what do you think? Or if you're from there, tell me, did she survive the attack on her wedding, or is it another person who will want to avenge the loss of her husband? Leave it in the comments for me. As we said before, in the last decade, the number of women within the cartels has grown exponentially, and there was one group that stood out above all, a hit squad made up entirely of women. It was called the Skinny Girls Cartel. Criminal organizations adopt young girls at a very young age and train them to be well-oiled execution machines. This group was named this way because they all had the same appearance. Very young women, thin, slender, hair pulled back and very tight, sunglasses, and high-caliber machine guns. Their childlike appearance made them go unnoticed among their victims, which made them very effective. Jocelyn Alejandra Niño was part of this group of hit women and was hired by the Cyclones faction of the Gulf Cartel. She operated in the northern area of Tamaulipas, keeping rivals at bay who were the Scorpions and the Meters. Her jovial and slim appearance also earned her the alias of La Placa, and not only because of the group she belonged to, but also because her figure reminded of the Santa Muerte, whom those who put their lives at risk every day worship, and well, not only of the drug traffickers but of people in general. But well, the young woman gained notoriety when in January of 2015, someone posted a picture of her on the internet forum Valor por Tamaulipas, a site where journalists and civilians anonymously report criminals and misdeeds to help authorities in their hunting and arrest efforts. In the photo, you can see the skinny girl in a humble room smiling and a large machine gun. The warmth of her smile contrasts with the coldness she had to take a life. That call to fame was her worst enemy because she was identified. She had become a target. That's how she was captured between the 12th and 13th of April of the year 2015. Near the Rio Bravo by members of the Meters, she was executed with a shot to the head. By the 14th of April, she was found in the worst of ways. On the border bridge of Matamoros, Tamaulipas and Brosville, Texas, a cooler and a narcomanta with threats to those who helped the Cyclones were found. It was signed by the Metros. Inside the cooler, La Flaca was found in pieces. She was not alone. In the grim image, she was accompanied by a man also in pieces and another woman, later identified as a police officer. La Flaca, paradoxically, was recognized by that photo that sealed her fate, where the tattoo on her forearm was clearly visible, her last name in large letters, Niño. Much is said about the violence of the drug trade in Mexico or Colombia, but many also forget about Central America, the main route for shipments to get from one point to another. The Lemus family in Guatemala is a name that makes more than one person tremble. The line between drug traffickers and politicians blurs when talking about the mayoralty of Jutiapa, Moyuta, a border state with El Salvador. Within this family, two sisters stood out, Mayra and Marixa, the terror of Jutiapa. And there were those who said that where they went, death followed. Mayra, being the older one, was the visible head in the organization of drug trafficking in a bloody struggle to maintain control of the border with El Salvador. The best way was to disguise themselves as politicians, something they had secured thanks to their brother Magnum Limos, the mayor of Jutiapa. A lot was said about Mara, and a rumor always magnified her reputation as a lady of evil. This story told that she took the life of her husband and dumped his body in another city. She was never tried or accused for this crime, but on the streets everyone knew that it was she herself who took that life. and so many others because in Jutiapa, running for mayor meant a direct ticket to the cemetery. Mera ordered the trip. However, she herself was the target of attacks by criminal gangs seeking control of the area. In the year 2006, while traveling with her brother, Mayor Magnum, and several relatives, their vehicle was intercepted by a van from which some men got out and opened fire in Mazalba. In the attack, Mayra and Magnum survived, but 4 members of their family lost their lives, including Jennifer, a 17-year-old girl and daughter of Maritza. This event turned the mother into an iceberg of hatred as well, and Mayra's right hand. Then, in 2009, Magnum Limos Perez died of a heart attack during his term as mayor, so Mayra ran for the position. As we said, in this place, the law of the West rules and the line between criminals and politicians is almost invisible. Thus, in the middle of the campaign to access the government, a meeting was held at the Los Cuernos Hotel in the city of Pedro de Alvarado in Jutiapa, Moyuta. Mayra showed up with her team of bodyguards. It was February 17, 2011. The polls had her as the favorite to win the elections. However, someone had other plans. Several trucks arrived at the location and men armed to the teeth got out who opened fire without hesitation, without asking. Marixa was in her armored truck relatively close when she heard the gunshots. She went with her bodyguard to the location, but they were repelled by the attacks. She found her sister Mayra in a back office where
she arrived crawling.
She was raised in that same place Marixa saw Mayra's lifeless body in a pool of her own blood, and the face disfigured by the shots they gave her in the face. Marixa took Mayra's place in business and politics. She also always pointed out that the one who gave the order to end her family was the mayor of Jutiapa, Roberto Marroquin Fuentes. Also, until she was captured, she tried to take his life on 3 occasions, and for her spectacular escapes from maximum security prison, they called her the Chapo Guzman of Guatemala.
To show her bravery, showing that it was so that she gave orders. Well, I would say that the only thing she had was, and I don't call it intelligence, brutality, in standing out, and that she was very cold-blooded killer. And why is it that people admire and say, oh, how did she manage to build an empire? The drug empire is the easiest thing in the world to manage, simply by not having a heart.
Griselda Blanco fled home at a young age to survive on the streets of Medellin. Among thugs and danger, she knew how to forge her destiny. She prostituted herself, stole, and by 15, she was already a fearsome criminal. Despite her love, she never shied away from shady business. In fact, it made her delve deeper and deeper. First, she was married to a counterfeiter and alcoholic with whom she had 3 children. It is said that her first husband fled the house due to threats from Griselda and died of cirrhosis. Others swear it was a heart attack, but many suspect or point out that he was murdered on Griselda's orders. In the 70s, she began a relationship with Alberto Bravo, who introduced her to drug trafficking. First as the boss's wife, since they got married and moved to the Latin neighborhood of Queens in New York. But the power dynamic would soon shift. The business progressed, as did Griselda's power. Her presence was so strong and her personality so intimidating that everyone called her the boss, relegating Bravo to the background. In 1975, she was accused by the Drug Enforcement Administration in what until then was the biggest narcotics case in history. Back in Colombia, she settled in Medellin and capitalized on her husband's business, whom she eliminated in a bar altercation. It wouldn't be until her 3rd husband, whom she also took the life of, named Dario Sepulveda, that she would earn the name or nickname of the Black Widow. The boss was stronger than ever and fearlessly returned to the United States, this time in Miami, where she opened the main routes for the drug trade. Such was her relevance in the world of crime that she advised a young Pablo Escobar, and thanks to her, the Medellin cartel was established, which flooded the northern country with its product. Drug trafficking was absolutely dominated by men in those times, so she forged her respect through cruelty and ferocity and was paving the way for women in the drug world. Then at her peak, she lived a high life with parties that lasted days. She was an addict to intimacy, and it was said that she would take off the top in the mornings to her occasional lovers. Her volatile and violent character made her dangerous even for Pablo Escobar himself. However, her thirst for blood led her to have more and more enemies, and the count of corpses on the streets of Miami led the Drug Enforcement Administration to focus on her exclusively, leading to her capture on February 17th of the year 85. While in prison, she married for the fourth time now with Charles Cosby, a young drug dealer from Los Angeles who admired her and whom she met by correspondence. But the love lasted very little. Griselda planned and ordered her new husband to travel to New York and kidnap the son of the late President John F. Kennedy. She would use him to pressure the government and get a sentence reduction. However, his partner regretted it and sold out his beloved. Griselda served her sentence. She was released in the year 2004 and deported to Colombia, where she lived off the criminal radar in an affluent neighborhood of Medellin. But the enemies she accumulated did not forget her because she took the lives of many, perhaps hundreds, and the mafia never forgets. Thus, on the 3rd of September of the year 2012, as she was leaving a butcher shop, a hitman on a motorcycle ran her down on the sidewalk, taking her life instantly. Finally, the world of drug trafficking, due to the brutality it involves, is imagined to be exclusively for men more prone to violence. However, these women have left their mark from hit women to mafia bosses. Each one was fierce in her own way, and her thirst for blood put her on par with any man of her time. They even terrified many of them, whether it was law enforcement or the military or rival cartels or mafias. The success of these women met the same end, and it is that their jewels were stained with their blood because they ended up dead by the same violence that they generated, cruel, ruthless, and without scruples. These are some of the characteristics that envelop the personality of the women of the narco who, despite being commonly linked with the fact of being a simple accompaniment of the biggest male capos. Their beauty is not the only thing that prevails in that dangerous world of death and ambition, but in reality, there are some whose story have left hundreds of corpses in their wake.
There are many women who have reached a high level in drug trafficking.
Today I'm going to tell you about the lives of certain women who kept up with the most important cartels in the country, having as much power as they wanted at their feet, the cold blood to take lives, and an unparalleled seduction. Such is the case of the doll, whose appearance left anyone who looked at her dumbfounded. Far from looking like a criminal, this woman projected elegance, sophistication, and wealth. Owner of a long golden mane, clear eyes, and as tall as her desire for power, Ana Mary Hernandez had not a hint of humility in revealing her enormous collection of jewels that she always wore with extremely expensive outfits. As beautiful as she was dangerous, it didn't take long for her to position herself as one of the most important and most sought-after traffickers.
And they assure that with her audacity and beauty, this woman earned a place in the dangerous world of drug trafficking and also won a part of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman's heart.
Known as the doll of drug trafficking, Ana was also considered by Maxim magazine as the sexiest drug trafficker in the world because with her slender figure and seductive demeanor, it would be hard to guess that the same woman carried under her high heels a quite murky path full of illegal acts. It is said that she ventured into this world after marrying a former federal agent from the United States, Daniel Edesma, who also had developed as a Customs and Border Protection inspector in El Paso, Texas, thus having all the necessary information to switch sides and perform in the world of narcotics. Daniel, enriched with a large amount of important data, served as an informant for some organized crime groups to whom he gave notice about which routes to take to transport the merchandise. However, he did not stop his work there, but also included his wife for the distribution of it, thus taking care of some cities like San Luis, Chicago, and Miami. Little by little, Mary became involved in the business until she amassed a very large wealth. She went from elegance to extravagance in a short time, and rumors along with her wealth began to emerge. People wondered where she got so much money from if she was not known to have a job that paid enough to support her lifestyle. There was no doubt that she had gotten involved in illegal affairs, a theory that gained more strength in the year 2010 when her then-husband's illegal activity came to light.
She and her ex-husband, the United States federal agent Daniel Ledesma, who is now in a Texas prison, trafficked cocaine.
Sentenced to 10 years in prison, it seemed that it would also be the end for the woman, that her luxuries and eccentric life would be seriously affected, but it was not so. Far from retiring from the business because she no longer had her male support, this woman let loose her talent as a drug trafficker. Two very important cartels in the country joined her list of partners, managing to surpass all of Daniel's businesses and making much more money than she had ever imagined. She rubbed shoulders with figures of great relevance and was even romantically linked to El Chapo, who, being a victim of this woman's charm, fell into her web. The nickname of the doll began to occupy the headlines of the most wanted lists. In the year 2013, a time when it was no longer a secret that she was involved in drug trafficking. The woman did a lot in a very short time, but not even her incomparable charm could save her from stepping into prison. On October 26, 2015, for 3 years, she was extradited to the United States to receive her sentence of 10 years in prison plus 3 years of probation. Undoubtedly, a very intelligent person capable of advancing in the business using only his head, that is, without the need to get his hands dirty to obtain wealth. In contrast to that personality, we have another woman with the same ambition for power, but a vastly different mindset. Jocelyn Alejandra Niño, better known as La Flaca, was undoubtedly one of the greatest fears for organized crime. Also called La Niña Sicaria, this short and harmless-looking woman was by far more violent than some thugs in the industry. Her mode of operation went beyond just moving merchandise from one place to another, as her work actually took place in an organization of hitwomen where not only she stood out for her talent for taking lives, but she also had the support of other colleagues who became known as Las Flacas, also linked to another organization that for a long time terrorized the streets of Nuevo León, a state in northern Mexico. Operating mainly in states like Baja California, Nuevo León, Sonora, and Tamaulipas, La Flaca and her colleagues could be identified by their similar way of dressing and even the resemblance they all had to each other, especially because they were thin. They could usually be seen with a bulletproof vest, gold chains around their neck, and a ponytail combed back, as well as their characteristic sunglasses placed on their head. Veronica Moreno Carrion, better known as El Lavero, was one of the members of the criminal organization who, before becoming a hitwoman, had served as a police officer in the state of Nuevo León, while the other member, Nancy Manriquez Quintanar, was known for having left dozens of bodies in her wake. Undoubtedly, it was a group of powerful and fearsome women, not only for their cold blood, but for the innocence that the girl's appearance detonated. Especially thanks to their slender body and friendly face, it was because of this that they operated without problems for a long time. Suspecting her doesn't seem possible. However, secrets always come to light. And by the year 2015, it became more complicated for the hit girl to keep a low profile. The fame of La Flaca had exceeded all limits, and rival gangs were quick to want to get rid of her, who they came to consider an angel of death. The beginning of her end was in the middle of the aforementioned year. She was still very young, under 22 years old, but her hands were so stained with blood that she couldn't clean them even with anonymity. A photograph of her then began to circulate. Rival organizations, and it was only a matter of time before someone found her and gave her a taste of her own medicine. An organization known by the name of the Cyclones were the ones who popularized said photograph. In it, you can see Jocelyn dressed in a vest, a gold chain, her firearm, and a tattoo on her arm that said boy. The intention was to put her under the eye of her enemies so that someone would take the initiative to put an end to her life, or alternatively, that she would be located by the relevant authorities. However, before reaching the eyes of the police, she was identified by another crime group known as the Meters, main rivals of the Flacas. It was they who deprived her of her freedom between the 12th and 13th of April of the year 2015 in Rio Bravo in Tamaulipas, and they would not have a single shred of mercy for her. It was time to pay with blood for all those crimes that were taken without hesitation. On the 14th of April, the crime was made known through the Twitter account that this criminal gang managed. They were extremely disturbing and explicit images that left no doubt that it was La Flaca. But her remains placed in a cooler revealed a part of her separated arm with the tattoo that said boy. Obviously, I'm not going to leave these photos here because they are extremely strong. Subsequently, the forensic doctor determined that her death was due to a shot in the upper part in the head, after which she was cut into pieces and put into the cooler, thus putting an end to the reign of terror that La Flaca perpetrated for so long, being that whisper in the ear of her enemies, warning them that death was lurking very close. But it's not something new that women are involved in these kinds of shady businesses. They are simply minorities, and it's very hard to believe that the females who get involved in the world of narco do it just to be the company of some renowned capo. However, the truth is completely different. As we have seen, there are those who are considered very dangerous and cold-blooded. Such is the case of Ana Griselda Blanco Restrepo, who earned both the nickname of the Queen of Coke and the Black Widow, although she is also referred to as the godmother of Coke, the boss lady, or the grand lady.
Griselda Blanco was known as the Queen of the Leaf, who opened the route from Medellin to the United States, and as a result of this, she paved the way for the entire Medellin cartel in the 70s.
Born in Cartagena de Indias, Colombia on the 15th of January in the year 43, she had her best time in the solid world of the narco in the 70s and 80s. However, it is said that her debut in crime dated back to her childhood, when she was just 11 years old, as she was roaming the streets of her neighborhood working as a pickpocket and making money at the expense of those who did not suspect a little girl of such age. 4 years later, she ran away from home, fleeing from the conflicts she faced every day with her stepfather, a ruthless man who only dedicated himself to mistreating and assaulting her. There are those who also claim that it was from then on that she began to work in the sale of narcotics, but other sources point to Alberto Bravo as the man who opened the doors to the drug trade for her, this man being her second husband and for whom she served as a shoe designer, but not just any shoes, but special models with compartments to transport the merchandise. And so it was that the woman began to amass her wealth, being her much before other important drug lords with billions of dollars in their power, but above all, owner of a halo of violence where she had to prove her worth, since being a business mainly controlled by men, not letting herself be trampled was her main goal, to continue standing out as the most feared.
That level of violence that Griselda brought to drug trafficking had not been seen before. If she
owed her money and didn't want to pay her, she would have you killed. If you owed her money and didn't want to or couldn't pay her, she would have you killed too.
As if that wasn't enough, over time, making more money and living in New York, it didn't seem enough for her to be the only one in the business, so she introduced her own son to the dangerous world of drugs. Michael Blanco, considered her favorite son, had the misfortune of living under the care of a ruthless mother who exposed him to human cruelty from a very young age.
I saw the first man burned in front of me. I was 5 years old, loved ones dead, murdered, tortured. I had to see the bodies and bury my brothers.
It seemed as if the only important thing for the Black Widow was power, as she was so willing to lose her children as a result of her illicit activities that getting rid of her 3 husbands was not a difficult task for her. It is said that those who were spouses of this fearsome woman, namely Carlos Trujillo, Alberto Bravo, and Dario Sepulveda, lost their lives allegedly by her own hand. Carlos Trujillo, her first marriage of a decade, apparently died of cirrhosis, although the woman was always suspected, while Alberto Trujillo left this world having been discovered in an infidelity and was murdered by his own wife. As for the last one, it is known that he wanted to escape from her clutches, taking with him the son they had in common. But as soon as he was caught, he said goodbye, not only to his son, but to his life forever from the world. Her reign of terror ended in '85 with her arrest. However, this did not happen before she could pass on her knowledge of the business to none other than Pablo Escobar. According to unofficial data, the woman has over 200 homicides to her name, but only 2 could be proven, for which she was given a 20-year sentence behind bars, which she served until June 6, 2004, the day she was released. She subsequently kept a low profile, but it took 8 years for her morbid past to catch up with her, as a man shot her to death on September 3, 2012 in Medellin, Colombia.